What Ferrari discovered after the Chinese Grand Prix could put Mercedes under investigation, because this wasn't just a dominant weekend. This was something else, something hidden in the data that doesn't add up. Mercedes didn't just win in Shanghai. They controlled every phase of the race: qualifying, sprint, race pace, energy deployment, everything. But Ferrari found a pattern that shouldn't exist, a performance gap that only appears in one very specific moment and disappears everywhere else, which raises a serious question. Are Mercedes just faster, or are they doing something no one else can replicate? And more importantly, something they shouldn't be able to do at all. Stay with me, because what Ferrari uncovered in that data changes everything. And if this is confirmed, this season might already be decided. Right after the lights went out in Shanghai, everything looked predictable. Mercedes launched clean, controlled the front. No chaos, no mistakes, just precision. But then, something unexpected happened almost immediately. Lewis Hamilton gets a stronger launch. Not marginal, clearly better. The Ferrari hooks up perfectly. Traction, balance, delivery, everything clicks at the exact moment it matters most. Into the first sector, for a brief moment, it looks like Ferrari might actually take control. And this is where people start to misunderstand the weekend. Because that moment was not luck. It was proof. Proof that Ferrari's car mechanically is working exactly as intended. Through the opening corners, the SF26 looks alive. Sharp on entry, stable on rotation, confident on exit. And that tells you something very important. Ferrari did not lose this race in the corners. Not even close. In fact, in those first few seconds, they looked like the faster car. But then the straight arrives, and everything changes. The momentum disappears. The advantage fades. And before the lap is even over, Mercedes takes it back. Easily, almost effortlessly. Antonelli moves ahead again. Russell follows. And just like that, the illusion is gone. But here's where things get interesting. Because this exact sequence, it keeps happening. Not once, not twice. Every single time Ferrari gets close, they gain in the technical sections. They close the gap under braking. They stay within reach through the corners. And then, they lose it all in a straight line. And not gradually. Not in a way you would expect from drag or setup differences. It's sudden, almost like a switch turns off. And this is where Ferrari started asking the real questions. Because when a car behaves like that, it's not just about aerodynamics. It's not just about engine power. It's about how the energy is being delivered. And more importantly, how long it can be sustained. This is the detail that changed everything inside Ferrari. Because when they looked deeper into those moments, they realized something didn't match their simulations. The drop-off they were experiencing was happening earlier than it should. Much earlier. And that creates a gap that cannot be recovered. No matter how good the car is in the corners. No matter how well the drivers perform. And yet, Mercedes had no such issue. Lap after lap. Same pattern. Same strength. No visible degradation. And that consistency, that's what triggered the first real concern. Because in Formula One, consistency at that level is never accidental. It is engineered, calculated, designed. But sometimes, it also reveals something you're not supposed to see. And Ferrari saw it. They just haven't said it yet. Ferrari didn't react emotionally after the race. They didn't go to the media. They didn't complain. They went straight to the data. Quietly, methodically, because what they saw on track didn't fully make sense. And this is where the story takes a different turn. Inside the garage, engineers begin isolating specific laps. Not the fastest ones. Not the obvious ones. The consistent ones. The repeatable ones. Because that's where the truth always hides. And what they find is not just a gap. It's a pattern. Mercedes is not gaining randomly. They are gaining in the exact same phase of a lap. Every single time. End of the straight. Right before braking. The exact moment where energy deployment reaches its limit. Except for them, it doesn't. This is where things get uncomfortable. Because in a normal scenario, every car reaches that limit. You deploy energy. You reach the peak. Then it fades. That's the cycle. That's the rule. But Mercedes seems to extend that window. Just enough. Just long enough to create a gap that cannot be closed later. And this isn't theory anymore. Ferrari measured it. They compared entry speeds into heavy braking zones. Compared throttle traces, compared deployment curves, and the conclusion starts forming. Mercedes is carrying electrical power further down the straight than expected, further than what Ferrari can achieve. And here's the key detail. It's not just about having more energy. It's about how efficiently that energy is used. Because if you deploy too aggressively, you overheat systems, you lose stability, you risk reliability. But Mercedes shows none of that. No overheating signs, no sudden drops, no inconsistency. It's clean, too clean. And that forces Ferrari into a very uncomfortable position. Because now they are not just asking how to catch them. They are asking if they even can, or if they are missing something fundamental, something deeper than setup, deeper than aerodynamics, something in the core of the power unit. And this is where another layer begins to unfold. Because when engineers can't replicate something, they start questioning assumptions, regulations, interpretations, gray areas. And Formula One has always lived in those gray areas. That's where the biggest advantages are found. Not in what is clearly allowed, but in what is not clearly forbidden. So Ferrari starts looking there, carefully, quietly, because accusing without proof is dangerous. But ignoring a pattern like this is even worse. And while all of this is happening behind closed doors, Mercedes keeps winning, keeps extending that advantage, keeps looking untouchable, which only increases the pressure. Because every race that passes makes that gap feel more permanent, unless someone proves otherwise. And that is exactly why what Ferrari found next might be the most important piece of this entire story. There's a moment in every race that most people completely ignore. It doesn't show up in highlights. It doesn't get replayed. But for engineers, it's everything. And in China, that moment exposed something Ferrari wasn't supposed to see. It happens at the very end of the straight, right before the braking zone, when the car has already deployed almost all of its electrical energy. This is where performance should level out. Every car, same limitation, same drop, same behavior, but not Mercedes. Because when Ferrari overlaid the data, they noticed something subtle, but decisive. Mercedes doesn't just arrive faster, they arrive later. That sounds small. It's not. It means they are still accelerating, at a point where everyone else has already stopped gaining speed. Think about that. While Ferrari is already losing electrical support, Mercedes is still pushing forward, still extracting performance, still gaining meters. And in Formula One, meters become tenths, tenths become seconds, and seconds decide everything. But here's where it gets even more complex, because this isn't happening randomly. It's controlled, repeatable, almost identical every lap. And that should not be possible without a trade-off. There's always a cost: thermal load, battery stress, energy recovery imbalance. Something always gives. But in Mercedes' case, nothing seems to, and Ferrari noticed that. They started tracking long runs, not just peak laps, full stints, looking for degradation, looking for weakness, looking for anything that would explain this behavior. And they found nothing obvious. No sudden drop in performance, no instability, no signs of the system struggling, which leads to a very uncomfortable conclusion. Either Mercedes has solved something that nobody else has, or they are operating in a space that others haven't explored yet. And that's where internal discussions started to change, because this is no longer about setup tweaks. This is no longer about small upgrades. This is conceptual, fundamental, and potentially controversial. Now here's the detail that really raised eyebrows. Ferrari noticed that this extended deployment becomes even more effective when following another car, which should not happen. Dirty air usually hurts performance. It increases drag, reduces efficiency, limits deployment. But Mercedes still gains, even in traffic, and that breaks one of the basic expectations of race behavior. So now Ferrari is not just analyzing speed, they are analyzing logic. Because when performance stops following predictable rules, it forces one question: what are we not seeing? And more importantly, what are they doing differently? At this point, the engineers are no longer just comparing data. They are building hypotheses, testing simulations, trying to replicate the behavior. But every attempt leads to the same result. They can't match it, not with their current system, not within their current understanding. And that's when doubt turns into concern. Because in Formula One, if you cannot explain something, you cannot fight it. And if you cannot fight it, you're already losing. So Ferrari takes a step back. They review everything again, from the first practice session to the final lap of a race, looking for one single clue, one inconsistency, one detail that connects all of this. And eventually, they find something small, almost invisible. But once you see it, you can't ignore it. And that detail might be the reason Mercedes looked unbeatable in China, and the reason Ferrari left that circuit more worried than ever. The detail Ferrari found wasn't in the obvious places, not in top speed, not in lap time, not even in the main deployment phases. It was hidden in the transition, that tiny window between full throttle and initial braking. A moment so short, most people would never think to analyze it, but Ferrari did. And what they saw didn't match any normal behavior. Because right before braking, Mercedes shows a second surge. Not a full boost, not something dramatic, but enough. Enough to extend acceleration just a fraction longer. And that fraction is everything. It's the difference between defending and being overtaken, between controlling the race and chasing it. Now here's why this matters. In a standard system, energy deployment follows a predictable curve. You accelerate, you deploy, you reach the limit, and then it fades. Smoothly, naturally. But in the Mercedes data, that curve doesn't just fade. It reshapes. There's a slight reactivation, a continuation where there should be a decline. And Ferrari couldn't replicate it. Not in simulation, not on track, nowhere. This is where the suspicion becomes something more serious. Because to create that kind of behavior, you need extremely precise control over energy release, battery, airs, mapping, everything working in perfect synchronization. And more importantly, you need to do it without triggering any regulatory limits. That's the line. That's where things get dangerous. Because Formula One doesn't just regulate how much energy you use. It regulates how you use it. And if Mercedes has found a way to bend that curve, even slightly, they've effectively created an advantage no one else can access. But here's the part that made Ferrari stop everything. This secondary surge only appears under specific conditions. High speed, low steering input, maximum deployment phase, which means it's not random. It's intentional, programmed, engineered, and that changes everything. Because now we're not talking about a strong engine. We're talking about control. Control at a level that borders on perfection. And in Formula One, perfection always comes with a question. How? Ferrari started digging deeper, looking into onboard traces, comparing throttle application, brake migration, energy harvesting phases, trying to find a legal explanation, a mechanical reason, anything that would justify what they were seeing. But every path led back to the same point. This shouldn't be happening like this. And that's when internal conversations shifted again. Because now, it's no longer just about catching Mercedes. It's about understanding whether they're operating inside the same rules, or just interpreting them differently. And here's where the tension inside the paddock starts to rise. Because Ferrari is not the only team seeing this. Others have noticed, quietly. No public statements, no accusations, just questions. And in Formula One, when multiple teams start asking the same question, something usually follows. But Ferrari has something the others don't. They have consistency in the data. Multiple laps, multiple scenarios, the same pattern, again and again and again, enough to build a case. Not publicly, not yet, but internally, this is already being treated as something serious. Because if this is confirmed, it doesn't just explain China. It explains why Mercedes looks untouchable, why they can control races without pressure, why even when Ferrari gets close, they can't stay there. And that leads to the final, uncomfortable realization. Mercedes isn't just faster. They are extending performance, exactly where it matters most, in the final meters of every straight, in the last chance to gain an advantage, in the one place where races are decided. And if Ferrari is right, then what they discovered in China is not just an advantage, it's the key to the entire season. And the only question now is, how long can Mercedes keep doing it before someone forces them to explain it?